The flashbulbs of the paparazzi felt like weapons, and for Marcus Thorne, they were a spotlight. Tonight, at the opulent Grand Astoria ballroom, he was king. He raised a 500-glass champagne flute, his other arm wrapped securely around the waist of his young, glamorous mistress, Serafina. He was about to give a toast. He didn't know that his pregnant wife, Hannah, was watching from the wings. He thought she was at home, crying. He thought she was weak. He thought she was a fool. He was about to learn, in front of the entire world, that the woman he'd dismissed as a simple, quiet wife was the only person who could destroy him. The rain that night was relentless, hammering against the black armored glass of the Bentley. Hannah Thorne, 7 months pregnant, felt each drop like a tiny hammer against her own fragile composure. She wasn't supposed to be here. "Are you certain, Mrs. Thorne?" Her driver, a long-time family employee named Arthur, had asked her, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. His face was a mask of professional concern, but she knew he'd seen the headlines on page 6, the New York Post, the photos of Marcus and her. "I am Arthur. Please, just to the service entrance. I have my own keycard." Hannah had spent the last 48 hours in a self-imposed prison of silence. The prison was, of course, a 10,000-square-foot penthouse overlooking Central Park, but it had felt like a tomb. 2 days ago, Marcus had finally, casually, dropped the bomb. "It's just not working, Han," he'd said, adjusting his $5,000 Brioni tie in the hallway mirror, not even looking at her. "We're different people. I've met someone." "Met someone," Hannah had replied, her voice hollow, her hand instinctively going to the swell of her belly. "Marcus, I'm carrying your son." "And I'll provide for you, obviously," he'd snapped, impatient. "A very generous settlement. My lawyers will send the papers. Just don't make a scene. It's bad for the brand." Then he'd left. He'd left to prepare for tonight, the Willow Creek Foundation's annual charity gala. His big night. The night he was to be honored as Philanthropist of the Year for his company, Thorne Industries, pledging a record-breaking and very public $5 million donation. Hannah had seen the invitation. It listed her as his spouse, but she'd also seen the text messages on his unlocked iPad, the messages from SS, Serafina Sinclair, his impossibly chic new VP of marketing. SS. "Is she going to be there?" Marcus. "No, she's indisposed. Tonight is for us, my star, our official coming out." SS. "Can't wait to stand by my man, wearing the red dress, the one you love." Hannah's hand tightened on the simple, pearl-encrusted clutch in her lap. The dress she wore wasn't couture. It was a simple, elegant, dark navy maternity dress from Seraphine. She wanted to blend in. She wanted to be wallpaper. For now. The Bentley slid to a stop at the cavernous, concrete service entrance of the Grand Astoria. She was invisible. The media, the real guests, were all 300 feet away at the grand crimson-carpeted entrance, fighting for air under a sea of black umbrellas and flashing cameras. "Mrs. Thorne," Arthur said, turning, "whatever you're planning, be careful. He's not the man your father introduced you to." "I know, Arthur," she whispered, the cold reality of it sinking in. "He's not. But neither am I the woman he thinks I am." She stepped out of the car, took a deep breath that was more of a shiver, and swiped a black, unmarked keycard against a steel door. The lock clicked open with a heavy, final-sounding thud. She was in. She walked past the clattering industrial kitchens, the steamy laundry rooms, the employees who nodded at her with a strange, knowing respect. They didn't see Mrs. Thorne, the billionaire's wife. They saw Ms. Keller, and Ms. Keller owned the building. That, however, was only the smallest, most insignificant of her secrets. The celestial ballroom at the Grand Astoria was a masterpiece of Gilded Age arrogance. 24-carat gold leaf climbed the vaulted ceilings, and crystal chandeliers the size of small cars dripped light onto the sea of New York's elite. The air was thick with the scent of Joe Malone peony and blush suede, and the murmur of 1,000 conversations. Hannah found the private viewing balcony, a small, shadowed alcove reserved for the venue's owners, hidden behind a velvet curtain. From here, she could see everything, and she saw him. Marcus Thorne was holding court. He was magnificent, she had to admit, in a $20,000 Tom Ford tuxedo. He was laughing, a deep, booming laugh that always made people turn and look. He was the sun, and everyone else was a planet, desperate to be caught in his orbit. And there, attached to his arm, was the comet. Serafina Sinclair, in a Valentino red dress so bright it was almost violent. It was cut impossibly low, clinging to a body that had never felt the discomfort of a third trimester pregnancy. She was beautiful, sharp, and glistening with diamonds. Diamonds Hannah recognized from a recent Van Cleef & Arpels insurance appraisal for her own missing jewelry. Hannah watched them. She watched her husband, the father of her unborn child, kiss his mistress on the temple. She watched him introduce Serafina to Mayor Thompson, to the elderly Atherton family, to the tech mogul James Prescott. He wasn't hiding. He was boasting. The gala's host, the polished CNN anchor, Richard Davies, took the stage. "Welcome, welcome," Davies boomed. "Thank you all for coming out to support the incredible work of the Willow Creek Foundation, helping thousands of underprivileged children across the country." Hannah's hand went to her stomach. Her children. She knew every one of their stories. The foundation was her life's work. "And now," Davies continued, "it's my great honor to welcome to the stage the man whose generosity tonight has shattered all previous records. The chairman and CEO of Thorne Industries, Mr. Marcus Thorne." The applause was thunderous. Marcus practically bounded onto the stage, pulling Serafina with him by the hand. He didn't let go. The room, which had been buzzing, fell into a confused, shocked silence. A wife, even a pregnant one, could be ignored. A mistress, on stage, at the biggest charity event of the year? This was a declaration of war. Marcus, oblivious or simply uncaring, took the microphone. "Thank you, Richard. Thank you all." He smiled, a wide, predatory grin that Hannah used to find charming. "It's true, Thorne Industries is pledging $5 million tonight." More applause. But charity, true charity. It begins at home. It begins with truth, with cutting away the things that no longer serve you and embracing the future. Hannah's blood ran cold. "He was not, for too long," Marcus continued, his voice dropping into a sincere, rehearsed tone. "I've been living, not my authentic life." He turned and looked directly at Serafina. The spotlight followed his gaze. "Serafina, you are my guiding star. You are my truth. You are my future." He raised his champagne glass. "To new beginnings. To us." He didn't kiss her. He didn't have to. He toasted her. At the Philanthropist of the Year Gala, his pregnant wife somewhere in the city, he raised a glass to his mistress. The New York Times reporter in the front row was typing so fast, his fingers were a blur. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the click, click, click of cameras. Serafina beamed, her eyes wet with triumphant tears. Hannah watched from the darkness, a single cold tear tracing a path down her own cheek. She wiped it away, not with sadness, but with anger. Her lawyer, Mr. Harrison, had advised her to wait. "Let him hang himself, Hannah," he'd said. "Give him the rope." Marcus hadn't just taken the rope. He'd built a public gallows and was dancing a jig on the trapdoor. On stage, the host, Richard Davies, looked utterly panicked. This was not in the teleprompter. He fumbled with his cue cards. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus, for that personal announcement." From the darkness, Hannah whispered to the stage manager standing beside her, a woman who answered only to her. "It's time. Tell Mr. Davies to read the card, the blue one." The stage manager spoke into a headset. On stage, Richard Davies's earpiece crackled. He listened, his eyes widening in confusion. He looked down at his lectern, where a new navy blue cue card had mysteriously appeared. He read it, blinked, read it again, and then looked up at the audience, his professionalism returning in a wave of sudden, electric understanding. "Ladies and gentlemen," Davies said, his voice now booming with genuine gravitas, "there has been a change in the program, a very special presentation." Marcus and Serafina, still holding hands, looked annoyed at being interrupted. "For 10 years," Davies read, his voice resonating with newfound drama, "the Willow Creek Foundation has been a beacon of hope. Its founder, a closely guarded secret, has been the sole, anonymous benefactor, building this organization into a global force with a $3 billion endowment. Tonight, for the first time, that founder has chosen to step into the light." "Please welcome to the stage," Marcus snorted. He probably thought it was some old money rival. "The woman who built it all, the true heart of Willow Creek, Ms. Hannah Keller." The name Hannah Keller hung in the air. To 99% of the room, it meant nothing. A new name, a new face. To Marcus Thorne, it was a punch to the solar plexus. Keller, her maiden name. He dropped Serafina's hand. "What?" he hissed, a word lost to the microphone but seen by all. He looked around, confused. He thought she was at home. He thought it was a prank, a new spotlight, a pure white-hot beam ignited on the opposite side of the stage, and into it walked Hannah. She was not the weeping, hysterical woman he'd left behind. The simple navy dress, which would have looked drab at a table, looked like a uniform of command on stage. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. Her pregnancy was not a vulnerability. It was a statement. She looked, in a word, regal. The ballroom was so quiet. The shush of her simple Manolo Blahnik flats on the stage floor was the only sound. She didn't look at Marcus. She didn't look at Serafina, whose face had gone from triumphant to a pale, confused mask of horror. Hannah walked directly to Richard Davies, who looked at her as if she were a celestial being, and took the microphone from his hand. She nodded. "Thank you, Richard. You can go. I'll take it from here." Richard Davies, a man who had interviewed presidents and kings, simply nodded and walked off the stage, leaving the three of them, husband, wife, and mistress, under the hot gaze of 1,000 eyes. Hannah turned, and for the first time faced the room. Her gaze was calm, steady, and utterly cold. "Good evening," she said. Her voice was clear. Not a tremor. It was the voice of a CEO, not a victim. "My name is Hannah Keller, and for 10 years I have been the founder and the sole funding source of the Willow Creek Foundation." A ripple of audible gasps. A woman. This young. The whispers started instantly. The Keller name was old, but it was associated with modest, old-world academia, not a $3 billion secret endowment. "I started this foundation with the inheritance left to me by my grandfather, Martin Keller," she continued, her eyes sweeping the room, landing on the Forbes reporter, the Wall Street Journal editor. He was not, as many were led to believe, a simple literature professor. He was a silent partner in the dawn of the tech age. He believed in two things: the power of knowledge and the poison of public ego. She finally, slowly, turned her head. Her eyes locked on Marcus. My husband, Marcus Thorne, is a man of great public ego. The air cracked. This was no longer a speech. It was a reckoning. He loves to put his name on things, Hannah continued, her voice dangerously soft. Buildings, press releases, and, as we've all just seen, his employees. Serafina Sinclair flinched as if struck. She was frozen, a beautiful statue of scarlet and shame. Marcus, Hannah said, addressing him directly. The entire ballroom, and the world now watching on a dozen live streams, vanished. It was just the two of them. You just pledged $5 million, a generous tax write-off. My foundation thanks you. She paused. I do have one small question, however. A matter of logistics, you could say. She took a small step toward him. He, in turn, took an involuntary step back. How exactly were you planning to pay for it? Marcus's face, which had been pale with confusion, was now flushing a deep, angry crimson. "Hannah, what is this?" he blustered, trying to laugh it off. He reached for the microphone, but she turned her shoulder, a simple, powerful movement that denied him. "You're confused, darling. The pregnancy, it's making you hysterical. Let's get you home." He was trying to paint her as unstable. The oldest trick in the book. "I'm not confused, Marcus," she said, her voice amplified by the speakers, echoing off the gold leaf ceiling. "I am, however, in possession of the quarterly report from Thorne Industries, the one your CFO, Mr. Barrett, was supposed to give you tomorrow." Marcus froze. The CFO's report was bleak. It was catastrophic. "I know," she said, answering his unasked question, "that Thorne Industries is leveraged to the hilt. I know that the Thorne Tower project in Dubai is a $2 billion hole. I know that you have been, for the last 6 months, propping up your company's stock by, let's call it, creatively remortgaging assets you believed to be jointly held." "That's a lie," Marcus roared, finally finding his voice. "Security. Get her off the stage." "Oh, but it's not a lie," Hannah said, her voice cutting through his. "You see, when you married me, you thought you were marrying Hannah Keller, the quiet academic's granddaughter with a modest trust fund. You were wrong. You married Hannah Keller, the sole proprietor of the Keller Family Office, a private equity fund that has been, for the last 5 years, the silent majority creditor for Thorne Industries." The silence in the room was absolute. It was the sound of 1,000 jaws hitting 1,000 dinner plates. A man at the Bloomberg table was already on his laptop, his face illuminated by the glow of a stock ticker. "You've been borrowing from me, Marcus," Hannah explained, as if to a child. "Every time you needed an extension on a loan, every time you needed a friendly investor to shore up a failing project, it was my money, routed through a dozen shell corporations, all leading back to me." "Why?" he whispered, his bravado gone, replaced by a sick, dawning horror. "Why?" Hannah laughed, a short, bitter sound. "At first it was to protect my investment, to protect my family's legacy. You were always a brilliant salesman, Marcus, but a reckless manager. I was cleaning up your messes in secret. I was saving you from yourself." She put her hand on her belly. "I was doing it for him, for our family." Her eyes hardened. "And then, 3 months ago, I found the receipt for the Cartier Love bracelet. The one she is wearing right now." Serafina instinctively put her hand over her wrist, a guilty, pointless gesture. "And that," Hannah said, "is when I stopped saving you, and I started preparing." She reached into her small clutch and pulled out 2 folded documents. "This," she said, holding up the first, "is a copy of the divorce papers your lawyer delivered to our home yesterday, the ones you were so eager for me to sign." She held up the second document. "And this is our pre-nuptial agreement, the one your team of high-priced lawyers drafted, and the one my lawyer, my real lawyer, Mr. Harrison, reviewed." She walked to the edge of the stage, near the New York Times reporter. "My husband's lawyers insisted on a very detailed infidelity clause. A quaint, old-fashioned idea. But seeing as my grandfather's fortune was the entire basis for our joint finances, my lawyer insisted on a small addendum. We called it the Corporate Morality Clause. Section 5, subsection 2A. She knew it by heart. It states, she projected, that if the husband, that's you, Marcus, engages in any action, public or private, that constitutes gross malfeasance, personal or financial, or that brings public shame and disrepute to the family name or its holdings, all shared assets, all jointly funded projects, and all lines of credit extended from the Keller family office are to be immediately called in." She looked back at Marcus, a chillingly calm smile on her face. "Marcus, when you stood on this stage, at my foundation's gala, and publicly toasted your mistress, you didn't just end our marriage, you triggered Section 5, subsection 2A. The thud was the sound of Seraphina Sinclair's Yves Saint Laurent clutch hitting the floor. Her face was the color of unbaked dough. Marcus was shaking his head, a jerky, desperate motion. No, that's not legal. You can't. A prenup, that's for houses, for art, not the company." "Oh, Marcus," Hannah said, pityingly. "You never read the fine print, did you? You left that to your subordinates. You were too busy being the visionary." "Well, I read the fine print, and my money wasn't just in your company. My money is your company." She turned back to the audience, who were watching this financial execution with a mix of horror and glee. Well, let's see. She checked the Rolex on her wrist, a simple steel band Oyster Perpetual, a gift from her grandfather. "As of 9:32 p.m., the moment you raised that glass to Ms. Sinclair, the call-in was executed. A preset algorithm, really. All it needed was my signal." She held up her phone, which she'd been holding in her left hand. A simple text message. The word was truth, sent to my legal team and my board of directors, who were all watching this live stream from an emergency meeting I convened this afternoon. In the front row, the Bloomberg reporter suddenly gasped and started typing furiously. "The ticker! Oh my God, the ticker!" A tech mogul at a nearby table, James Prescott, pulled up the Thorn Industries, THR, after-hours market on his phone. He held it up. The stock, which had closed at $250 a share, was now in a free fall, showing trades at $90, $50, $12. "The banks have been notified, Marcus," Hannah said, her voice like ice. "Your credit lines, the ones you were using to make payroll next week, they're frozen. The assets you leveraged, they've been seized. The $2 billion Dubai project, it's now the property of the Keller family office, to be liquidated and the proceeds given to this foundation. My company, my father's company." Marcus was breathing hard, his face purple. You've stolen it." "No," Hannah corrected him. "I haven't stolen it. I've reclaimed it. You built an empire on my foundation, and when you proved yourself morally and financially bankrupt, I took my foundation back." She paused, letting the weight of the word settle. "Thorn Industries, as of 9:32 p.m., is effectively insolvent. The board, my board, has already voted. You, Marcus, have been removed as CEO and chairman, effective immediately." This was the killing blow. He wasn't just ruined. He was fired. You're lying!" he screamed, lunging for her, for the microphone, for anything. He was stopped by two men. They hadn't been there a moment before. They were large, wearing immaculate dark Savile Row suits. They were not Gala security. They were Hannah's private detail. Mr. Thorne, the first one, a man with a distinct British accent named Mr. Fields, said calmly, "You are trespassing on private property." "This is my Gala," Marcus roared, struggling against their iron grip. "No, sir," Mr. Fields corrected him. "As Ms. Keller stated, she owns the building, and the board of the Willow Creek Foundation, which she also controls, has asked that you be removed." "Hannah," he pleaded, his voice finally breaking, the fury replaced with pure, pathetic terror. "Hannah, baby, please. Think about our son. Think about us. We can fix this. She means nothing to me. She was just fun. A mistake." Serafina Sinclair, who had been slinking towards the exit, stopped. She looked back at the man who had called her his guiding star 10 minutes ago, and her beautiful face contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated loathing. She picked up her clutch, turned, and, with as much dignity as she could muster, ran. She didn't even stop when her Louboutin heel caught on the carpet and snapped, sending her sprawling. She kicked off the remaining shoe and fled, barefoot, from the ballroom. One problem was solved. Now, only the main one remained. Hannah looked at her husband, the man she had once loved, the man who was now being held, pathetic and sweating, in front of the world he had tried so hard to impress. "I am thinking about my son, Marcus," she said, her voice quiet but carrying in the vast, silent room. "I'm ensuring he's not raised by a fraud. I'm ensuring his last name, Keller, will be one of integrity." She nodded to Mr. Fields. "Take him out. Use the service elevator. I believe he knows the way." The departure of Marcus Thorne was not a quiet affair. It was a humiliating, visceral spectacle. He did not go gentle. He kicked, he swore, he threatened lawsuits against everyone, against Mr. Fields, against the Grand Astoria, against Richard Davies, against the New York Times reporter for taking his picture. "You'll never work in this town again," he shrieked, his Tom Ford tux jacket tearing at the shoulder as he was half dragged, half carried, through the main aisle. "You're nothing without me, Hannah. You're a weak, pregnant—" The doors of the ballroom slammed shut, cutting off his final, desperate insult. The silence that returned was even more profound than before. 1,000 of New York's wealthiest and most powerful people had just witnessed a corporate execution and a public crucifixion, all before the dessert course. Hannah Keller, stood alone on the stage. She was breathing heavily, the adrenaline of the past hour finally catching up with her. Her hand was pressed against her stomach, as if to shield her son from the toxic fallout of his father's implosion. For a second, the room just stared. What was the protocol for this? Then, in the front row, the elderly Mrs. Atherton, the matriarch of New York's oldest money family, a woman who had not been impressed by anyone since the Eisenhower administration, slowly, deliberately, put down her napkin. She rose to her feet, and she began to clap. It started slowly, a single crisp clap, clap, clap. Then James Prescott, the tech mogul, stood. Then the mayor. Then, table by table, like a wave building in a stormy sea, the entire room, all 1,000 guests, rose to their feet. The sound was deafening. It wasn't just applause. It was a roar of approval, of respect, of sheer, unadulterated awe. Hannah closed her eyes for just a moment, letting the sound wash over her. It was not the validation she needed, but it was the validation she had, in that moment, earned. She held up a hand. The applause died down. "My apologies, ladies and gentlemen," she said, finding her voice again. That was some long overdue charity of a different kind. A few nervous laughs, which quickly grew more confident. She had given them permission to be entertained. And my apologies to the Willow Creek Foundation. That was not the speech I had planned. She smiled, a small, genuine smile that lit up her face. The speech I had planned was to announce our new initiative, a $100 million fund for STEM education for at-risk girls. More applause, this time genuine and focused on the mission. "I see now," she continued, "that my planned fundraising goal for tonight was, perhaps, a little modest." She looked at the Bloomberg reporter, who was still typing. "Thorn Industries as an entity is toxic, but its assets, its holdings, its real estate, its patents are quite valuable. Once liquidated, I estimate the net proceeds to the Willow Creek Foundation. Its new owner will be substantial." She looked back at the room, her composure absolute. "So, I am pleased to announce that the $100 million initiative is, as of tonight, fully funded. By my ex-husband." The room erupted. People were laughing, cheering, and toasting her. She had just turned the ugliest public divorce in New York history into the single greatest philanthropic donation of the decade. "Now," she said, her voice business-like again, "we were in the middle of a fundraiser. The item up for auction was a 1-week stay at a villa in Tuscany." She paused, and a wicked, triumphant glint appeared in her eye. Let's sweeten the pot. We'll scrap the villa. The next auction item is a 1-week, all-expenses-paid trip on my 200-foot yacht, the Serene. It was formerly named the Serafina. I'm having it rechristened tomorrow." The laughter that followed was a release, a celebration. Hannah Keller had not just survived. She had won. She had taken her power back, defended her child, secured her life's work, and done it all without raising her voice, all while wearing a navy blue maternity dress. She picked up the gavel. "Let's start the bidding at $250,000, shall we?" The aftermath of Marcus Thorne's detonation was not silence. It was a vacuum, and every guest in the celestial ballroom was fighting to fill it, not with air, but with whispers. The 1,000 most powerful people in New York had just witnessed a public execution, and the executioner was still on stage, 7 months pregnant, holding an auction gavel. Hannah Keller, however, did not wait for the shock to curdle into awkwardness. She was in control. "Now," she said, her voice a warm, inviting contralto that belied the ice-9 she had just injected into her husband's life. "We have a foundation to fund. Mr. Davies, if you'd be so kind as to return." Richard Davies, the CNN anchor, who had been watching from the wings with his jaw somewhere near the floor, practically sprinted back to the lectern. His entire professional demeanor changed. He was no longer humoring a billionaire's wife. He was standing in the presence of a monarch. "Miss Keller," he said, his voice rich with a new, profound respect. "The stage is yours. Always." "Thank you, Richard." She gave him a gracious nod, a queen to her courtier. "Now that yacht, the Serene. I was just informed by my team that the winning bidder will also receive a non-negotiable interior design consultation. As you can imagine, the previous decor was, shall we say, tacky." The room erupted. It was a cathartic, thunderous laugh. She hadn't just beaten her enemies, she was roasting them. She had given them all permission to move on, to be entertained, to join her on the winning side. "Let's start the bidding at $250,000, Richard boomed. A hand shot up at the tech table. It was James Prescott, the boy genius mogul who had been watching the stock ticker. "500,000, he yelled, not even waiting for a paddle. Another voice from an older, steel industry family. 700, 1 million. This from the Duchess of Arvington, who had flown in from London and adored good drama even more than good charity. 2 million, a calm voice said from the front. It was James Prescott again. He wasn't bidding on a vacation. He was paying tribute. He stood up, a wiry man in a $15,000 Keaton suit that looked like it was slept in, and he raised his glass, not to the auctioneer, but directly to Hannah. Hannah met his gaze. She nodded, a subtle, respectful acknowledgement. Peer to peer. "Sold," Richard Davies slammed the gavel. "To Mr. James Prescott for $2.2 million after a spirited final offer." The gala continued, but the atmosphere was fundamentally altered. It was no longer a stodgy social obligation. It was the hottest ticket in history. The remaining auction items, a Picasso sketch, a walk-on role in a Netflix blockbuster, sold for triple their estimates. People were not just donating. They were investing in Hannah Keller's new world order. As the dessert course was cleared, Hannah knew her work here was done. She slipped away from the main stage, her private detail, Mr. Fields and his partner, materializing from the shadows to form a silent, immovable perimeter. She was not, however, allowed to leave a pariah. "Ms. Keller." The voice was dry, like old paper, but carried the weight of generations. Hannah turned. It was Mrs. Atherton, the 85-year-old matriarch of the Atherton banking dynasty. She was the one who had started the standing ovation, a woman so powerful she had never in her life needed to raise her voice. "Mrs. Atherton," Hannah said respectfully, inclining her head. "I hope the evening wasn't too disruptive." The old woman's eyes, a pale, piercing blue, scanned Hannah's face. She saw no hysteria, no pregnancy-fueled emotion. She saw control. She saw strategy. She saw, in fact, a younger version of herself. "Disruptive?" Mrs. Atherton said, a tiny, rare smile touching her lips. "My dear, I've been coming to this gala for 40 years. It's the first one that hasn't been unutterably boring." She reached out a delicate, blue-veined hand, and to the astonishment of everyone watching, patted Hannah's arm. "You did what was necessary. Never apologize for protecting the family. Or in this case," she glanced at Hannah's stomach, "the dynasty." "Thank you, Mrs. Atherton," Hannah whispered. "No, thank you. You've reminded these new money buffoons," she said, with a dismissive wave at the room in general, "that breeding has nothing to do with money and everything to do with spine." She turned. "I shall be doubling my standard donation to Willow Creek. Good night, Miss Keller." That, Hannah knew, was the true victory. The legal and financial battles were won by logic. The social war, the one that determined her future in this city, had just been won by character. She continued her exit. As she reached the grand lobby, she was met by James Prescott, who had been waiting for her. "Ms. Keller," he said, his eyes electric with ideas. "James Prescott. We haven't been formally introduced. Mr. Prescott, a pleasure, and thank you for your profound generosity. Forget the yacht, that was—" he waved it off. "A ticket. I just got off the phone with my people. The after-hours trading on Thorn Industries. Or what's left of it. It's a bloodbath. Your algorithm that triggered the call-in. It was a scalpel, Ms. Keller, a work of art. You didn't just seize the assets. You decapitated the entire C-suite stock options in one move. Brilliant. It was a necessary contingency, Mr. Prescott." "Hannah," he said, dropping the formality. "Don't Mr. Prescott me. What you did in there, people are going to call it revenge. It wasn't. It was a takeover. You're holding the keys to billions in distressed, high-tech industrial and real estate assets. You're going to need a partner to liquidate, or better yet, rebuild. My company, we could—" Hannah held up a hand, gently, but with absolute finality. "James," she said, matching his familiarity, "I appreciate the offer. Truly, but I'm not liquidating, and I'm not rebuilding." She smiled. "I'm refounding." She left him there, processing the difference. As she reached the top of the grand marble staircase, the doors were pulled open by the hotel staff. The sound that hit her was not the polite murmur of the Gala, but the roar of a tidal wave. A sea of people, 100 flashing lights, a wall of noise and rain and shouting, the paparazzi. They had been waiting for Marcus and his mistress. They had been tipped off for that story. But the Times reporter inside, and the Bloomberg analyst, and the dozens of live streamers had all fed them a new, infinitely better one. "Hannah, Hannah, is it true? Did you fire your husband?" "Miss Keller, our sources say you've seized the company. Is it true?" "Over here, look over here. How long did you plan this? Who are you wearing?" The last question made her almost laugh. Mr. Fields and the other guard flanked her, their bodies a human shield. "Keep moving, Mum," Fields murmured, his hand on her back. But Hannah stopped. She stopped 1/3 of the way down the grand staircase, a trick of public relations she'd learned from watching women far more famous than she. She was high enough to be seen, her navy blue dress a stark, commanding silhouette against the Gilded Age gold. She was not running. She was not hiding. She turned her head slightly, offering her profile to the sea of cameras. She did not smile. She looked serene, strong, and in control. She was giving them their picture, the picture that would be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and Page 6, the one that would define the narrative. The woman who toppled an empire. After a 5-second pause, an eternity that guaranteed her the cover, she continued her descent. Arthur was waiting with the Bentley, the door open, the engine humming. She slipped inside, the heavy, armor-plated door closing with a soft, satisfying thud. The world went silent. "Home, Ms. Keller?" Arthur asked, his eyes meeting hers in the mirror, a new, deep respect in them. "Home, Arthur." "Thank you." The car pulled away from the curb, a black, silent shark gliding through a sea of flashing lights. As they turned onto Park Avenue, Hannah's phone, which she'd set to Do Not Disturb, lit up with a single, preset alert. It wasn't a text, it was a news flash from Bloomberg Terminal. Flash: Thorn Industries, THR, plunges to $0 in after-hours trading. All credit lines frozen. CEO Marcus Thorn removed by board. Sources confirm, majority creditor. Keller Family Office seizes all assets. Board appoints Hannah Keller as interim trustee. Developing. Hannah read it, then read it again. Interim trustee. Her lawyer, Mr. Harrison, was not just good. He was a poet. She leaned her head back against the soft Connolly leather. The adrenaline, which had been coursing through her veins like rocket fuel, finally began to recede. It left behind a vast, cold, and strangely peaceful emptiness. She hadn't cried. She hadn't screamed. She had simply acted. But now, in the dark, safe cocoon of the car, she placed a hand on the hard swell of her stomach. And for the first time, a single hot tear traced a path down her cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness or even relief. It was a tear of cost. She had saved her child, but she had been forced to eviscerate his father to do it. "It's over," she whispered to the unborn child. "It's all over. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Meanwhile, Marcus Thorne had been dragged through the service corridors, a maze of concrete and steel, his threats and pleas echoing uselessly off the tile. "You're finished!" he shrieked at Mr. Fields, his face a mask of purple-red fury. "I'll have your job. I'll have all your jobs. I'll buy this building just to fire that doorman." Mr. Fields, a man who had served in the British SAS, remained utterly impassive. "As Miss Keller owns the building, sir, I find that unlikely." They reached the service bay, a damp, foul-smelling alley where a single yellow light cut through the rain. With a final, unceremonious shove, Marcus was ejected from the building. He stumbled and fell to one knee in a shallow, oily puddle, his $20,000 tuxedo jacket tearing completely at the shoulder. "You can't do this!" he screamed, pulling himself up. The steel door slammed shut. The lock thudded into place. He was alone, in an alley, in the rain. "Fine," he spat, wiping rain and grime from his face. "Fine." He reached into his pocket for his phone. He would call his lawyer. He would call his CFO, Mr. Barrett. He would call the board. He would have them all arrested. He pulled out his iPhone 16 Pro Max. Face ID not recognized. He tried again. Face ID not recognized. He typed in his passcode. The phone opened. But something was wrong. His background, a picture of him and Serafina on a yacht, was gone. It was the default Apple wallpaper. All his apps, gone. His contacts, empty. His email, no mail account. A single text message sat on the screen. It was from an unknown number. "Mr. Thorne, your corporate-issued device has been remotely wiped as per company security protocol upon your termination. Your personal data, if any, will be forwarded to a non-corporate address upon request." He stared at it, the rain dripping from his hair onto the screen, wiped. He threw the phone against the brick wall. It shattered, the screen spider-webbing before going dark. "Fine!" he roared. He would go to the plaza. He would use the black card. He would get a suite, call his lawyers from the hotel phone, and bury her. He stumbled out of the alley onto the street, a pathetic, soaked wreck. He waved down a taxi. "The Plaza Hotel! And step on it!" he barked, climbing in. 20 minutes later, he was standing in the opulent, hushed lobby of the plaza, dripping on the P insignia in the mosaic floor. The night manager, a man who had bowed to him a week ago, looked at him with undisguised pity. I need a suite," Marcus stammered, the cold starting to set in. "The presidential. Put it on the card." He slapped his Thorne Industries American Express Centurion card on the marble counter. The manager took it. He swiped it. He frowned. He swiped it again. I'm terribly sorry, sir. The card it's being declined." "Declined?" Marcus laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "That's not possible. That card has no limit. Run it again. You're doing it wrong, you idiot." "Sir," the manager said, his voice firm. "I've run it twice. The issuing bank reports the account has been closed by corporate administrator. Do you have another form of payment?" Marcus fumbled through his wallet, his other cards. All Thorne Industries corporate, all closed. He found a single $100 bill. He had taken it for tipping the valet a lifetime ago. He was a billionaire with $100 in his pocket. And a torn tuxedo. He was nothing. Across town. Serafina Sinclair had run. She had run barefoot, her Louboutin heels abandoned on the ballroom carpet, her red Valentino dress hiked up to her knees. She flagged a taxi, her mind a blank, white-hot panic. He said I was a mistake. He called me fun. She didn't go to Marcus's penthouse. She went to her apartment, a sleek, glass-walled condo overlooking the Hudson, a corporate apartment provided by Thorne Industries. She burst through the door, her plan already forming. She was a survivor. Marcus was a liability. He was finished. But she wasn't. She grabbed a Louis Vuitton duffel. She wasn't packing clothes. She went to her safe. She pulled out the jewelry, the Van Cleef and Arpels necklace, the Cartier bracelet Hannah had mentioned, a Patek Philippe watch, another, cash, stacks of it, the emergency fund Marcus had given her. She would be on a plane to Dubai or Monaco before the sun came up. She knew people. She would be fine. She was just zipping the duffel when her doorbell rang. A sharp, insistent ding-dong. It wouldn't be Marcus. He'd be in jail or a psych ward. It must be the doorman, wondering about the noise. She opened the door. It was Mr. Fields, Hannah's head of security, and beside him, a woman in a severe black St. John suit with a tablet in her hand. "Miss Sinclair," the woman in the suit said, her voice devoid of all emotion. "My name is Julia Marks. I'm with the Keller Family Office, Forensic Accounting Division. May we come in?" You can't. This is my apartment," Serafina stammered. "Actually, no," Ms. Marks said, stepping past her, her eyes already scanning the room. "The lease is held by a Thorne Industries shell, which is now an asset of the Keller office. We are here to, as your doorman put it, take inventory. Please put the bag down." Serafina clutched the duffel. These are gifts. They're mine." Ms. Marks tapped on her tablet. A high-resolution photo of the Van Cleef necklace appeared. This item, serial number 774B, was purchased on a Thorne Industries corporate account on August 1st. It was logged as client entertainment. "Were you entertaining a client, Miss Sinclair?" She tapped again. The watch. Logged as a signing bonus. "Your employment contract, which we have here, makes no mention of it." She looked at Serafina with cold, dead eyes. "These are not gifts. They are misappropriated corporate assets. And as Ms. Keller is the new sole administrator of that corporation, she wants them back. Now." Mr. Field stepped forward and gently, firmly, took the duffel bag from Serafina's numb fingers. What happens to me?" Serafina whispered, the fight gone. Ms. Marks looked around the apartment. "This corporate lease was terminated at 9:32 p.m. tonight. You have..." She checked her watch. 60 minutes to gather your personal belongings. Things you paid for with your own salary. After that, building security will escort you out." She turned, her work done. "Oh, and Ms. Sinclair." Serafina looked up, tears of rage and humiliation streaming down her face. "Your company-issued car, the Maserati. The keys, please. It's already been sold." At the penthouse, Hannah did not go to bed. She had a bath, letting the hot water soak away the chill of the night. But her mind was clear, sharp, and focused. She changed, not into a silk nightgown, but into a fresh pair of black cashmere trousers and a soft, cream-colored sweater. She walked to the ornate mahogany desk that Marcus had always claimed as his office, despite never using it. On it, the stack of divorce papers he'd had served. She picked them up, the arrogant, dismissive settlement. He was offering the Hamptons house, which her money had paid for, and a generous $10 million a stipend. A pittance. An insult. She walked to the gas fireplace and, with a click, lit the logs. She fed the documents to the flame, one by one. Infidelity clause. Asset division. Waiver of alimony. She watched the signature Marcus Thorne curl, blacken, and float away as weightless, powerless ash. She picked up her phone. Not the personal one. The work one. the one that connected to the Keller family office. She hit a single speed dial. "Harrison," a gravelly voice answered on the first ring. It was 3 a.m. He was, of course, awake. "It's done," Hannah said. "I watched the live stream," her lawyer replied. Mrs. Atherton's standing ovation was a particularly nice touch. "I've already fielded calls from the Journal and the SEC. And? The SEC is relieved. We are positioning this as a hostile takeover and whistleblower action. You saved the company from a fraudulent CEO, you didn't destroy it. We've provided them with the real books. They are very interested in Mr. Barrett's creative accounting. They will likely be at his house by dawn." "Good," Hannah said. "And Marcus? He'll be buried in litigation by 9 a.m. The shareholder suits will be first. The SEC will be second. The bank fraud charges will be third. He has no money, no assets, and, as of an hour ago, every law firm in the Legal 500 has received a conflict of interest notice from the Keller office, preemptively barring them from representing him. He'll be lucky to get a public defender." A long silence. "Hannah," Harrison said, his voice softening. "You did the right thing. It was surgical. It was necessary, Harrison. Send the interim team into Thorn Tower at 7 a.m. I want a full audit, a new org chart, and the name on the building changed by the end of the week." "What do you want it to say?" he asked. Hannah looked out the window. The black sky was softening to a deep, pre-dawn blue. The city, her city, was waking up. "It's a non-profit now," she said. "It's the new headquarters for the Willow Creek Foundation. The Willow Creek Tower has a nice ring to it." "It does indeed, Miss Keller." She hung up. She stood on the balcony, the one that had felt like a prison, and breathed in the cold, clean air of the new day. She felt the baby kick, a strong, steady, reassuring presence. "It's just us now, little one," she whispered, placing a hand on her stomach. "But we're not just a family. We're a foundation." She was Hannah Keller. She was the billionaire, and she was, finally, free. And so, Hannah Keller proved that the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. She didn't just get revenge, she got justice. She didn't just expose a cheater, she dismantled a corrupt empire and used the pieces to build a better future for thousands of children. This story is a powerful reminder that you should never, ever underestimate a person who has something to protect, whether it's a foundation, a future, or the unborn child in their arms. The world dismissed her as a billionaire's pregnant wife, but she took the stage and revealed herself for who she truly was, the billionaire. What did you think of Hannah's ultimate power move? What would you have done in her position? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories where the underestimated finally get their justice, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a single story of truth, betrayal, and ultimate triumph. Thank you for listening. Attention, everyone. Imagine this. A man has it all. Mansions in Connecticut, a 9-figure bank account, and the most ambitious, dazzling woman on his arm. But there's one thing he doesn't possess: respect. Not for the quiet, understated woman waiting for him at home. At the most important gala of his career, with his tigress by his side, he decides to humiliate his wife, to show the world how insignificant she is to him. But he makes a mistake, a catastrophic mistake. He forgets who he is insulting. He thinks he's putting down a nobody. In reality, he is insulting the only person on earth who holds the power to take absolutely everything from him. Like this video and subscribe to our channel to to witness the world's most epic corporate justice. The cat and the tiger, the sunlight streaming into the breakfast nook of his $50 million estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, was, in the opinion of Victor Sterling, aggressive. Too bright, too cheerful. And it exposed a single, nearly imperceptible smudge on the chrome leg of the marble table. "Amelia," he barked, not looking up from his paper. "The staff is slipping again." Amelia Sterling, his wife of 10 years, paused mid-sip of her herbal tea. She was not dressed in silk pajamas, but in simple, functional athletic wear. Her light brown hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked like a woman preparing to run errands, not the wife of the man Forbes had recently hailed as the new king of New York real estate. She looked at the smudge. "I'll speak to Maria, Victor. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't." Victor was the CEO of Vanguard Developments, the fastest-growing luxury commercial real estate firm on the eastern seaboard. In 5 years, he had transformed a modest boutique firm into a multi-billion-dollar giant, with skyscrapers altering the skylines of New York and Boston. He glanced at his wife across the table. She was fine, pretty in an understated, forgettable way. She kept the household running with almost obsessive efficiency. The parties were perfect, the staff impeccable, smudges aside, and she never, ever bothered him with trivialities. She was high-quality background furniture, perfect for his high-speed life. But God, she was boring. His phone vibrated on the table. The screen lit up. Chloe. A slow smile spread across Victor's face. He picked it up. "Sterling. Richie, darling," a husky voice purred on the other end. "I'm looking at the press note for tonight's gala. You're listed as the keynote speaker. They're calling you the visionary." "Are they?" Victor said, leaning back. "Well, they're not wrong." He caught Amelia's eye. She was looking at her teacup, her expression unreadable. He felt a familiar, petty jab of annoyance. She never asked about his work. She never seemed impressed. "Are you going to burn down the stage, babe?" Chloe said. "Just picked up my dress. It's the red Versace, the one you loved. The one with the slit." Chloe murmured. "Looking forward to it. You'll be at my table, of course, front row, where I belong. Send me a photo of the dress," he said, and hung up. Amelia quietly placed her cup on the saucer. "Was that Chloe? Your assistant?" "Executive assistant," Victor corrected her automatically. "And yes, she is finalizing details for the Vanguard Gala tonight. It's the biggest night in Vanguard's history. We're honoring our top partners." "I know. I have my dress ready." Victor sighed. "Amelia, about that. I need you to just blend in tonight. It's a business event. There will be a lot of high-level players. I need to focus on networking. I'll have Chloe with me to handle introductions and manage my schedule." Amelia's gaze finally lifted. Her eyes were a very clear, very pale gray. "You mean you want me to sit quietly and not embarrass you?" Victor bristled. I don't want you to be a distraction. You know how you are. Quiet. People think it's rude. Chloe understands the energy of these events. She's a tigress like me." "A tigress," Amelia repeated. The word was without inflection. "I see. And what am I?" Victor finally folded his paper and gave her his full attention. He felt a surge of dominance, the same he felt when closing a 9-figure deal. "You, my dear, are my refuge. You are the quiet harbor I return to. You run this house. You manage our life. That is your strength. Running boardrooms is my strength. Let's not confuse the two. Tonight, I need a tigress at my side. I ask you to be the lamb." He stood up, adjusting the cuffs of his $5,000 Tom Ford shirt. "I'm heading to the office. I'll see you at the gala. Try to look festive." He left the room without a backward glance. He did not see Amelia's hand close around the delicate porcelain cup. He did not see the tiny cracks that suddenly spiderwebbed across its surface. He only heard, a second later, the soft, crisp crunch as it snapped cleanly in two in her hand. Amelia looked at the two perfect halves of the cup in her hand. She did not flinch. She showed no hint of pain as a drop of blood welled up on her palm. A lamb, she whispered to the empty, sunlit room. Interesting. She calmly rose, rinsed her hand at the sink, and wrapped a napkin around the small cut. Then she pulled out her own phone, a simple, discreet model. She did not call a friend. She did not call a lawyer. She opened a secure messaging app and typed a single message to one contact labeled M. Harrison. The message was simple: initiate storm protocol. Effective tonight. 10 p.m. Ist. The reply was instantaneous. Confirmed, Madam Chairwoman. Are you sure? Amelia looked at the smudge on the table leg Victor had pointed out. She looked at the broken cup. She thought of the red Versace dress. I'm absolutely sure. They can have their party. It will be their last. The public execution, the Gala, held in the grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria in New York, was a sea of black ties, dazzling diamonds, and the hungry, glittering smiles of people who either had power or desperately wanted to be near it. The red carpet was 100 feet long. Flashes popped as senators, tech billionaires, and New York society royalty made their way inside. Victor Sterling was the epicenter of it all. He stood on the mezzanine, a glass of Macallan 25-year in hand, soaking it up. Every banner, every custom ice sculpture, every $1,000 floral arrangement bore the sleek silver V of Vanguard Developments. You look like a king, Chloe murmured, linking her arm through his. He looked down at her and grinned. The red Versace dress was magnificent. It was less a garment and more a declaration of intent, leaving absolutely nothing to the imagination. Her dark hair was slicked back, her red lips full. She was a tigress, just as he had said. She was a weapon. She was a trophy. You are dazzling too, Miss Davis, he murmured, his hand landing possessively on the bare skin of her lower back. He scanned the room for Amelia. He spotted her near a quiet alcove, talking to one of the catering managers. She wore a subdued, elegant silver dress. It was a modest, almost severe Carolina Herrera in its simplicity. She looked beautiful, Victor supposed, but in the way a statue is beautiful, cold, distant, and completely overshadowed by Chloe's vibrant, living color. He felt a pang of irritation. Couldn't she just try to look like the wife of a tycoon? Couldn't she at least pretend to be excited by his success? A reporter from the Wall Street business section approached him, microphone in hand. Mr. Sterling, incredible turnout. Vanguard has truly redefined the New York skyline. What's the secret to your Midas touch? Victor smiled, puffing out his chest. He launched into his favorite theme. It's simple, really. Vision. Audacity. Not being afraid to break things to build something better. While my competitors are busy with focus groups, I'm signing checks and moving earth. You have to be a shark. You have to be willing to devour the competition. And you certainly have, the reporter said. The new Asca Tower is a marvel, but a project of that scale. There are rumors you have some very powerful, very quiet backers. The parent company, Ethelred Holdings, is famously reserved. Can you tell us anything about them? Victor's smile tightened slightly. Ethelred was his one frustration. They were the money, the deep, endless well of capital that funded his vision. He had never met the board. All his dealings were through an intermediary, a stiff British lawyer named Marcus Harrison. They approved every proposal, wired every dollar, but remained annoyingly anonymous. Ethelred knows a good investment, Victor said smoothly. They provide the fuel, I provide the engine. They're smart enough not to get in my way and let me drive. And speaking of your team, the reporter pressed, nodding toward Chloe, you clearly value a dynamic partnership. Miss Davis is always by your side." Chloe preened. "Victor needs people who can keep up, people who see the future like he does. It's an honor to be his right hand." "And what about your wife, Mrs. Sterling?" the reporter asked, craning his neck to see Amelia, who was now diligently checking a seating chart near the entrance. "What role does she play in your success?" This was the moment. Victor felt the whiskey, the adrenaline, the adoration in Chloe's eyes. He looked at Amelia, standing there like a stiff administrator, and then at Chloe, who looked like a fire goddess. He felt a surge of contempt so strong it was almost intoxicating. He wanted to draw a line. He wanted to show everyone who mattered and who didn't. He laughed, a short, dismissive bark. "Amelia? Oh, she's essential." He gestured widely, and nearby conversations quieted as people turned to listen. Amelia looked up, her gray eyes locking onto his from across the room. "You see," Victor said, his voice ringing out, "to build an empire, you need two things. You need a tiger, and you need a house cat." He ran his hand down Chloe's arm. "You need someone with fire. A tigress," he emphasized, "who can hunt with you, who can take down rivals, who understands the kill." He grinned at Chloe, who was practically vibrating with triumph. Then he pointed his glass directly at Amelia. The entire ballroom, hundreds of people, followed his finger. Amelia stood frozen, the spotlight finding her. "And then," Victor continued, with a shrug of magnanimous condescension, "you need a house cat. Someone who keeps the cushions warm. Someone who makes sure the pantry is stocked. Amelia is the finest homemaker a man could ask for. She's simple. She keeps my domestic life organized so I can focus on the things that actually matter. Every king needs a castle, and she's a wonderful, quiet little manager of mine." The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. The reporter's smile froze. Chloe, however, let out a small, triumphant giggle. Victor, mistaking the stunned silence for awe, raised his glass. "So, a toast. To the tigers, and to the patient little house cats who support us." Amelia did not flinch, did not cry, did not flush with embarrassment. Her expression remained one of perfect, placid calm. She simply held his gaze for 1, 2, 3 seconds. For Victor, it felt like a block of ice sliding down his spine. Then she turned. Not abruptly, but with a slow, deliberate grace, and walked out of the ballroom. "Ah, she's shy," Victor said, trying to seize the moment back. "Anyway, as I was saying about the Century City project." But the mood was broken. People were whispering. He had gone too far. He hadn't just insulted his wife. He had been cruel. "Victor!" Chloe hissed, her fingers digging into his arm, her smile gone. "That was too much." "It was the truth," Victor snapped, suddenly defensive. "Let's go get a real drink." He pushed his way toward the bar, ignoring the stares. He didn't know that Amelia was not heading for her car. He didn't know she was in a service elevator, riding up to a private suite on the penthouse level. He didn't know that in that suite, Marcus Harrison and a team of 4 corporate lawyers were waiting for her, with documents and laptops covering every surface. "It's done," Amelia said, as she walked in, peeling off her silver shawl and tossing it onto a chair. Her face, so quiet and placid downstairs, was now carved from granite. "He did it, the public insult?" Harrison asked gravely. "He called me a house cat in front of 200 of our partners in the press," Amelia said, sitting at the head of the table. "He toasted me for being simple." The lawyers winced. 10 o'clock, Harrison said, looking at his watch. "Protocol is active, Madam Chairwoman. The first lockdowns are engaging now." Amelia nodded. "Good. Freeze everything. Vanguard developments, his personal accounts, the joint accounts, the lines of credit. Everything. I want him to wake up tomorrow morning the man he truly is, a man with nothing. Interactive. Question. Theo Ban, Amelia đã có kế hoạch cho việc này từ khi nào? Là từ lúc Victor cưới Chloe, hay là từ khi Victor lần đầu gọi cô ấy là simple, đơn giản? Hãy chia sẻ suy nghĩ của bạn ở phần bình luận. The Titans fall. Victor woke up to the agonizing sound of a leaf blower. His head felt as if it were filled with wet cement, and his mouth tasted like an ashtray. He fumbled for his phone, groaning. It was 9:30 a.m. He had stumbled home drunk and belligerent, celebrating his triumph with Chloe. Amelia's car was gone, and her side of the bed was untouched. Good. He wasn't in the mood for her silent judgment. He checked his phone. 17 missed calls from his CFO, David Chan. 3 from his head of construction. A dozen text messages. Victor, call me. It's an emergency. Where are you? The Ethelred lines are frozen. Our main accounts are blocked. I can't make payroll. Victor, what the hell did you do? Victor sat bolt upright, the hangover fleeing in a wash of icy panic. What? He dialed David Chan. The man answered on the first ring. David, what is this? I just saw your messages. Victor, thank God. What did you do? Ethelred just called in our entire revolving line of credit. They're citing a breach of trust clause. All our operating capital is frozen. Everything, Victor. What? They can't do that. Victor scrambled out of bed and rushed to his home office. It's a glitch. Call Harrison. Call their finance department. I have, David shrieked, his voice cracking with panic. I've been on the phone since 6 a.m. All Ethelred contacts have disappeared. Their lines are disconnected. Their emails are bouncing. It's like the entire holding company has vanished. And Victor, it's not just the corporate accounts. What do you mean? Victor said, his hand shaking as he tried to log into his laptop. My security team just called. Your access codes to the Vanguard mainframe were revoked last night at 10:01 p.m. Mine too. We're locked out of our own company. That's impossible. His laptop login screen blinked. Access denied. His blood ran cold. He tried his personal bank, a private account with Chase Bank where he kept his pocket money. He entered his password. A new screen popped up. Account frozen. Please contact a bank representative. No. He tried his American Express Centurion card. He called the number on the back. Mr. Sterling, a polite automated voice said, your account has been suspended by the primary account holder. What primary account holder? I am the primary account holder. The primary holder of this corporate account, the voice clarified, is listed as A.M. Sterling, Ethelred Holdings. Victor dropped the phone. A.M. Sterling, Amelia, Maria. His wife's name. It had to be a coincidence, a clerical error. A horrible, catastrophic clerical error. Amelia. The house was silent. He ran to their master closet. Her side was empty. Not a single dress, not a single pair of shoes, only a row of empty velvet hangers. He ran to the ensuite bathroom. Her toiletries, her skincare, her ridiculous expensive French perfumes. All gone. She had left him. Fine. She could have her little dramatic fit. But how could she freeze his accounts? It made no sense. His phone rang again. It was Chloe. Richie, she said, her voice sharp and brittle. I'm downstairs. Your gate isn't working. The guard says my name isn't on the list. What? Wait. Victor was frantically pulling on clothes. I'm having some security issues. A system glitch. Well, fix it. I left my laptop in your study and my card was declined at the coffee shop. It was embarrassing. Your card? My corporate Amex. It's declined. What is going on, Victor? Last night you looked like a god, and now everything is falling apart. Fix it. She sounded less like a mistress and more like an angry creditor. I'm on it. I'm driving to the office. He rushed to his garage, to his Aston Martin DB11. He pointed his remote key. Nothing. The garage door wouldn't open. The car lights wouldn't flash. A small green light on a new security panel he'd never seen before was blinking red. He was trapped in his own house. He ran to the front door just as a black car pulled up to the gate. A man in a simple dark suit stepped out and walked toward the keypad. He didn't use a code. He used a key. The massive iron gate swung open. The man, whom Victor didn't recognize, walked calmly up the stone path, carrying a briefcase. He didn't ring the bell. He used another key to open the front door. "Who in God's name are you?" Victor shouted from the top of the stairs. "This is private property. I'm calling the police." "That won't be necessary, Mr. Sterling," the man said, his voice placid. He set his briefcase on the foyer table. "My name is John Campos. I am part of the private security team, hired by the owner of this property." "I am the owner of this property." "No, sir. You are not," the man said simply. "This property, along with the vehicles, art, and furnishings, is owned by a private trust managed by Ethelred Holdings. As of 10:40 p.m. last night, your residency privileges have been revoked." Victor stared, his mind unable to process the words. "A trust? What trust?" "You are asked to vacate the premises. You will be allowed to take your personal effects, clothing, toiletries, etc. My team will escort you. A car will be provided to take you to a hotel of your choice, for which you will need to provide payment." You can't. This is my house. I bought this house." "The purchase, sir, was made by the Ethelred Trust on your behalf," Mr. Campos said, utterly unbothered by Victor's rage. "A courtesy that has now been rescinded." Amelia did this. It's her, isn't it? It's a divorce tactic. It's illegal." "I am not authorized to discuss Mrs. Sterling," the man said. "My instructions are simply to secure the property. You have 1 hour to pack a suitcase." "Or what?" Victor sneered, trying to regain his footing, his bravado. Mr. Campos looked at him, his eyes completely neutral. "Or you will be removed for trespassing, Mr. Sterling. And I assure you, you do not want the press, who are already gathering outside your gate, to get a photo of that." Victor's head swiveled toward the gate. Chloe was gone. In her place were 2 news vans. The first tremor was over. The earthquake had begun. Call to action. Show your support for ultimate justice by hitting the like button. The revelation. The next 48 hours were a descent into bureaucratic hell. Victor, humiliatingly escorted from his own home with a single suitcase, was dropped off at the St. Regis, New York. When he tried to check in, every single one of his personal credit cards was rejected. He was forced to use the last $3,000 in cash in his wallet to secure a room for 2 nights. He sat on the generic king-size bed, his world spinning. This wasn't a divorce tactic. This was an execution. He spent the entire day on the phone. His lawyers, a high-powered team from Skadden, ARPS, were baffled. "Victor, we've reviewed the Vanguard constitutional document," his lead attorney, Ben, said, his voice tinny over the speakerphone. "It's ironclad. You hold no equity stake. All your compensation, your bonus structure, even your property stake. It was all synthetic, tied to performance, and granted by Ethelred. They are the sole shareholder. We have never seen a structure like this." "What does that mean? Synthetic?" Victor yelled. "It means you own nothing. You are a highly paid employee, Victor. An incredibly well-paid one, but an employee nonetheless. And the termination clause, my God, it references a morality and conduct rider that allows Ethelred to terminate for actions that discredit the parent company. What did you do?" Victor thought of his toast, of calling his wife a house cat in public. It couldn't be. That was personal. This was business. "It's my wife," Victor whispered, the terrible truth finally crystallizing. "Amelia. Is it her? Your wife? What does she have to do with Ethelred? We're running a search on her. Amelia Maria Sterling, née Collado." Her parents were low-level software engineers. No personal wealth. No corporate stakes. She's a nobody, Victor. This is coming from Ethelred, not your wife. You don't understand, Victor said, his mind flashing back to the name on the Amex account. A.M. Sterling. It's her. It has to be. He tried calling Chloe. The call went straight to voicemail. He sent her a text. My accounts are frozen. It's a temporary hostile maneuver by my partners. I need a place to stay and some cash. Her reply came 3 hours later. Victor, I can't. My job? My reputation? I was your assistant. I can't be seen with you while this is happening. I'm sorry. I have to look out for myself. The Ethelred lawyers have already contacted me for an exit interview. He threw the phone against the wall. She had been his tigress, and at the first sign of blood in the water, she was gone. The news broke that afternoon. Vanguard CEO Victor Sterling fired. Partner company stocks plummet. Ethelred Holdings cleanse house in stunning move. What happened at the Sterling Gala? His name, his face, was everywhere. He was no longer the visionary. He was a disgrace. David Chen called him one last time. They're liquidating Victor, David said, his voice hollow. They're not replacing you. They're dissolving Vanguard Developments, selling the assets. Everyone is fired. 10,000 jobs lost. The whole damn thing. It was just a house of cards. Victor was drowning. 10,000 jobs. His legacy. His towers. All gone. Because he had insulted his wife. The power was too vast. The punishment too absolute. A wife, even a vindictive one, couldn't wield this kind of corporate power. On the third day, his money ran out. The hotel politely informed him his room key would be deactivated at 11 a.m. He was stranded, toxic, and penniless. Just as he was trying to figure out if he could sell his $20,000 Patek Philippe watch for cash, an email landed in his inbox. It was the only email that had managed to get through his firewall. The sender, Office of the Chairwoman, Ethelred Holdings. The subject, Mandatory Board Summons. The email body was brief. Mr. Sterling, you are hereby summoned to the executive headquarters of Ethelred Holdings, 1000 Park Avenue, 44th floor, on Friday, October 20th, 10:20 a.m., sharp. Your presence is required to finalize your termination and discuss potential legal actions. A car will be waiting for you at your hotel. This was it. His chance to fight. He would meet this mysterious board. He would meet the real power behind Ethelred. He would make his case. He would threaten to sue for something. He wasn't going down without a fight. He would find out who this A.M. Sterling really was. He put on his last clean Tom Ford suit, the one he'd worn to the gala, now wrinkled from his suitcase. He tried to project the image of the titan he had been just 3 days prior, but looking in the mirror, he saw a desperate, terrified man whose world had been ripped out from under him by an invisible hand. The unveiling. The Ethelred Holdings headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of the most exclusive skyscraper on Park Avenue, one of the few on the skyline Victor hadn't built. The lobby was a cathedral of black marble and smoked glass, silent save for the hiss of the water feature. It was a place of quiet, terrifying, old money. Victor gave his name to the receptionist, who looked at him with open, icy disdain. Mr. Sterling, they are expecting you. He was escorted to a private elevator. There was no button for the 44th floor. The security guard used a biometric hand scanner, and the elevator began its ascent, fast and silent. The doors opened directly into a reception area. A stern-looking woman ushered him through to a set of massive oak doors. They are waiting. Victor straightened his suit jacket, took a deep breath, and pushed the doors open. The boardroom was stunning. It was dominated by a single 50-foot slab of polished obsidian table. One entire wall was a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking all of New York, a view that made his old office view look like a keyhole. Seated around the table were a dozen people, men and women, in immaculate dark suits. He recognized them instantly, and his blood ran cold. This was not just a board. This was a pantheon. There was Koji Tanaka, the most feared private equity head in Asia. There was Lady Annabel Grayson, who ran the EU's largest private asset portfolio. There was General Marcus Phillips, Retrainitos, formerly of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who now advised the world's biggest defense contractors. And at the far end, standing nervously, was Marcus Harrison, the lawyer he had dismissed as a mere intermediary. These weren't backers. These were the people who owned the backers. These were people who could buy and sell countries before breakfast, and they all stared at him with undisguised contempt. "Mr. Sterling," Marcus Harrison said, his voice clipped. "Thank you for joining us. Please take a seat." He gestured to a single small chair placed in the middle of the room, several feet from the main table. It was the chair of the accused. Victor sat down, his heart slamming against his ribs. "This is a rather impressive collection of talent," Victor stammered. I wasn't aware." "That is precisely the problem, Victor," Lady Grayson said, her British accent cutting the air. "You weren't aware of a great deal." "I demand to know what is happening," Victor said, trying to regain his old bravado. "I have been ruined. My company has been destroyed." "For what? For a joke?" "For this is grossly unprofessional. It is tortious interference." "Unprofessional," Koji Tanaka repeated, his voice silky soft. "A man who publicly compares his life partner to livestock, lecturing us on professionalism. A bold strategy." This is over, Amelia," Victor said in disbelief. "You are liquidating a $10 billion portfolio over a domestic dispute?" "We are liquidating a portfolio because its CEO proved to be a catastrophic liability," General Phillips thundered. "You were given a simple test, Mr. Sterling. A test of character, and you failed it in the most public way imaginable." "What test? Who is in charge here? What are you people to her?" Marcus Harrison looked at the empty, high-backed leather chair at the absolute head of the table. "We are the board of directors. We advise. We manage. But we do not rule. Our job is to execute the vision of our founder and chairwoman." "Then I want to speak to her," Victor demanded. "I want to speak to this A.M. Sterling. Where is she? Hidden away as always?" "That is true," Harrison said. "She has always believed the work should speak for itself. She built this firm from nothing, and her one rule was that her privacy remain absolute. She wanted a quiet life. She trusted us to manage her empire. But," Lady Grayson added, "she also believed in having insurance. She believed in placing her valuable assets in the care of someone she could implicitly trust. Someone who, by their very nature, would be underestimated." "What are you talking about?" Victor whispered, a nascent, sickening horror rising in his throat. "She is not hiding, Mr. Sterling," Harrison said, his eyes moving toward the main boardroom doors. "She was merely running late. She had to finalize the liquidation of your empire. The massive oak doors." Victor turned. Amelia walked in, but this was not the Amelia he knew. This was not the quiet, mousy woman in yoga pants. This was not the house cat. She was wearing an impeccable Armani charcoal suit, so sharp it looked like it could cut glass. Her hair, usually pulled back in a simple ponytail, was coiled in a severe, intricate bun. Her simple gray eyes were now the color of a winter storm, and they were fixed on him with a heart-stopping intensity. She carried a leather portfolio and was flanked by two lawyers he recognized from the firm of Wachtell Lipton, the most ruthless M&A litigators on the planet. She did not look at Victor. She walked with a silent, terrifying authority to the head of the table. The entire legendary board rose to its feet as she approached. She took her seat in the empty chairwoman's chair. Marcus Harrison pulled out her seat. Madam Chairwoman. Welcome. Thank you, Marcus. Please, everyone, be seated, Amelia said. Her voice was the same, but the tone was completely different. It was crisp, commanding, and utterly cold. Victor was paralyzed. He was vibrating. He couldn't form a thought. Amelia? What? What is this? Geese? A joke? You're one of them? A secretary? Amelia finally turned her head. She looked at him not as a wife looks at a husband, but as a scientist looks at a failed experiment under a microscope. Hello, Victor, she said. Please refrain from speaking, unless spoken to. We have much to get through. She opened her portfolio. Let the record show, she began, that on this day, the board meets to ratify the termination with cause of Mr. Victor Sterling, CEO of the now dissolved Vanguard Developments portfolio. Victor finally found his voice. It came out as a choked gasp. You are A.M. Sterling? You? Amelia looked up, her expression one of mild annoyance. Yes, Amelia Maria Sterling. I founded Ethelred Holdings 12 years ago. Vanguard Developments was my pet project. And you, Victor, were my biggest disappointment. The silence in the room was absolute. The only sound was the faint ticking of the Patek Philippe watch on Victor's wrist, a watch he now realized she had bought him. You, he stammered, his mind short-circuiting. But your parents? You were simple. The word hung in the air, grotesque and foolish. Amelia actually smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Victor had ever seen. Simple? Yes, that was the point. My father didn't just mess around with software, Victor. He designed the core encryption algorithm for the first global-scale quantum network. He sold the patent for a sum that would make your entire net worth look like a rounding error. He and my mother hated the spotlight, so they retired to a quiet life. And they raised me to value one thing above all else: privacy. She leaned forward. I took that inheritance, and at 24, I founded Ethelred. I didn't want my name or face in Forbes. I didn't want to be on magazine covers. I wanted to build. So I created a structure. I hired Marcus, here, and this brilliant board to be the public avatars of the firm. I remained anonymous, the solitary A.M. Sterling, pulling the strings from a quiet life. And I, Victor whispered, the blood draining from his face. What was I? You, Amelia said, her voice clinical. We're an experiment. I met you when you were a mid-level manager at a small firm. You had a spark. You were ambitious, driven. I thought you were brilliant. I fell for that drive, I believed. Here is a man I can build with. Then you financed me. I didn't finance you, Victor. I created you, she stated. I founded Vanguard Developments for you. I cleared the path. I fed you the capital. I made the calls behind the scenes to get your permits approved. Your vision, your Midas touch. It was my capital, my connections, and my strategy. You were just the arrogant, loud-mouthed front man I put in place to take the credit. Because, unlike you, I don't need credit. I need results. Victor shook his head, denial battling with the horrific, obvious truth. But our life, the house, the parties, you were just my wife. Yes, Amelia said, and I liked that part. I wanted a partner. I wanted a home. I thought I could have both. I thought you loved me, Amelia, the simple woman, not the CEO of Ethelred. It was the perfect test, and for a few years it worked. But you became lost. You started believing your own press. You started believing you were the titan, and I was just the house cat. She gestured to the lawyers. The Gala was not your first mistake. It was simply the last. For 2 years, Victor, I've been watching you. You began to embezzle. Never! Do not lie, she snapped. and for the first time her voice cracked like a whip. The entire board flinched. The red Versace dress for Miss Davis, charged to a Vanguard corporate account as client entertainment. The yacht you charter in the Hamptons, rented by a shell company funded through Vanguard's discretionary budget. The 3-carat diamond earrings you bought her for her birthday, classified as partner gifts. You were not just cheating on a wife, Victor. You were stealing from a chairwoman. You were stealing from me. She pushed a thick folder across the table. That is a full forensic audit of your last 24 months. You have defrauded Ethelred Holdings out of approximately €4.2 million, enough to put you in federal prison for a long, long time. Victor stopped breathing. Prison. Amelia, please, he pleaded, his voice breaking. He slid out of the small chair and fell to his knees. Amelia, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was an idiot. I was arrogant. Please don't do this. I love you. I've always loved you. Amelia looked down at the pathetic, broken man kneeling on the marble floor. Her face was completely impassive. No, Victor. You loved the idea of me. You loved having someone quiet to clean up your messes. You loved having a lamb so you could feel like a tiger. The insult? That I could have almost forgiven. People say stupid, cruel things. But you said it in front of my partners. You said it in front of the press. You compromised my position. You humiliated A.M. Sterling, not just Amelia. You mistook my privacy for weakness and my silence for stupidity. And in doing so, you proved yourself to be not only a bad husband, but a reckless, terrible CEO. She stood up. The board has voted. Your termination is effective immediately for cause, citing gross misconduct and embezzlement. Ethelred will not press charges. A small sliver of hope ignited in Victor's eyes. On one condition, Amelia continued, her voice dropping to an icy whisper. You will sign this. A lawyer placed a single document in front of him. It is a full confession and a divorce settlement. You will walk away with nothing. Not the house, not the cause, not the art, not a single dollar. You will admit to the fraud, and in exchange for my silence, you will disappear. You will relinquish any and all claims to my assets, Ethelred's assets, and you will sign a permanent global non-disclosure agreement, NDA. If you ever utter my name, or Ethelred's, or connect me to it in any way, the full force of this firm's legal team and the Attorney General's office will come down on you. You will die in prison. Victor's hands were shaking so badly he couldn't hold the pen. You built your entire identity on my money, Victor. Now you get to see what you are worth without it. He looked at her, his eyes swimming with tears. Amelia, please. I am nothing without you. Amelia felt a final, chilling confirmation. I know. Sign the papers. He picked up the pen and scrawled his name, his signature a frantic, desperate streak. Good, Amelia said. She turned to her head of security. Mr. Campos, escort Mr. Sterling from the building. He is now, officially, a trespasser. Victor was hauled to his feet. As they led him past the obsidian table, past the silent, powerful board, he looked one last time at the woman he had called his wife. She had already turned away, looking out the window over the city she owned. Her city. She was already discussing fourth-quarter projections with Lady Grayson, as if he had never been in the room. The New York ghost. 6 months later, the cover of Forbes was not a man. It was Amelia. The photo was an austere, black-and-white portrait. Her gray eyes looked directly into the camera, radiating unmistakable intelligence and power. The headline was simple. The billion-dollar ghost, A.M. Sterling, steps out of the shadows. The story detailed the shocking dissolution of Vanguard Developments, exposing Victor Sterling as a profligate, fraudulent CEO who had been living off the genius of his anonymous, powerful wife. It painted a picture of a woman who, for a decade, had been the most powerful and unseen force in global finance. Amelia Biedtia, it turned out, hadn't just liquidated Vanguard. She had reallocated its assets. She had taken the best projects, the few brilliant but overlooked engineers, and the soundest assets, and merged them into a new, leaner, more aggressive firm under her direct control. Sterling Corp. It was already valued at triple what Vanguard had been. Her days of hiding were over. She was seen in Davos, in London, in Tokyo. She moved through the world not as Victor's +1, but as the titan she had always been. The Lamb was, it turned out, the dragon who owned the entire mountain. And Victor? He was a ghost of another kind. He lived in a $200 a month studio in the Bronx, the paint peeling off the walls. The NDA and the confession had blackballed him from the industry forever. No one would hire him. No one would speak to him. He had sold his Patek Philippe to pay the rent, his Tom Ford suits to buy groceries. He was a temp employee. He worked in the mailroom of a mid-level insurance firm, a job he had gotten by using his college degree and omitting the last decade of his resume. One afternoon, he was sorting mail when he saw the Forbes magazine pass by, his replacement's name on the subscription. He looked at Amelia's face. He saw the woman who had shared his bed, the woman who had organized his sock drawer, the woman he had dismissed so completely. He thought of the power, the money, the life. He had held the winning lottery ticket in his hand for 10 years, and he had set it on fire because he was too arrogant to read the numbers. He tossed the magazine in the correct box and moved to the next. His hands, which had once signed $100 million deals, now fumafe. Rough and stained with ink, across the city, in the 44th floor boardroom, Amelia Sterling stood by the window. "Madam Chairwoman," her new assistant Sarah said, "the Goldman Sachs team is here to discuss the Sterling Corp IPO. They seem very nervous." Amelia smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Good. Let them be nervous. Send them in." And Sarah, "Yes, ma'am. Please order lunch for the entire team and have them check the air conditioning in the engineering room. Those new quantum servers are running hot, and I want my people to be comfortable." "Right away," Sarah said, scribbling a note. Amelia looked at the city, the half-finished towers that had once been Victor's. Her new firm was already buying them, refitting them, finishing them her way. She had taken his name off every plaque, every building, every letterhead. She had built an empire. She had hidden inside it for protection, and she had been forced to burn it down. But now, from the ashes, she was building a new one. And this time, there would be only one name on the door, her own. The winter in the Bronx was a grim affair of cold, persistent rain. Victor Sterling stood under the awning of a bus stop, sipping lukewarm coffee. The thin jacket he'd bought at a thrift store barely kept out the cold. His mailroom shift was over, and he was just trying to muster the energy to take the bus back to his peeling studio apartment. A car pulled to the curb in front of him, its engine a low, purring growl that was alien to this neighborhood. It was a black Maybach, polished to a mirror shine. A chauffeur rushed to open the back door with a large black umbrella. A leg emerged, then a figure. It was Amelia. Victor's heart stopped. He physically recoiled, pressing himself against the dirty plexiglass of the bus stop. She was here, in his humble neighborhood. She wore a cream wool coat that likely cost more than his entire annual salary. She looked sharp, focused, and utterly out of place. "The acquisition is final, Sarah," Amelia's voice, crisp and cutting through the rain, said to her assistant. "I want the new server integration to begin Monday. This AI algorithm is the final piece for Sterling's core logistics network." Victor's blood ran cold. This building, the one he passed every day. She had bought it. She was here, on his street, expanding her empire into the last place he had felt safe from her memory. He must have made a sound, a gasp, a choked curse, because her head turned. Her eyes, clear and gray like the rainy sky, swept over the bus stop. They passed over him. Then they came back, their gazes locking across the 20 feet of wet pavement. Victor froze. He saw everything in that second. The man he was, the man he had become. The cheap coffee, the frayed cuffs, the hollow look in his own eyes. Amelia looked at him. There was no recognition. There was no hatred. There was no pity. There was no triumph. There was nothing. It was the look a person gives a stranger they've accidentally made eye contact with on a train. It was a brief, impersonal flicker of acknowledgement that another human being was occupying space, followed by an immediate and total dismissal. In that single, empty gaze, Victor Sterling was not her ex-husband. He was not the man who betrayed her. He was not even the man she destroyed. He was just a random, shivering man at a bus stop. She turned back to her assistant, as if he had never existed. "Let's go. We're late for the Tokyo board call." She and Sarah walked into the building. The chauffeur closed the door behind them. Victor stood alone under the rain, his whole body trembling. The humiliation at the gala, the firing, the eviction. None of it compared to this, being looked at with such complete, crushing indifference. He was so far beneath her, he wasn't even worthy of being an enemy. He was simply irrelevant. His coffee cup crumpled in his hand. The bus pulled up, its brakes hissing. He didn't get on. He stood there, staring at the empty curb where the Maybach had been, soaking in the cold, hard rain. Final thoughts and call to action. And that is the end of our story, everyone. A brutal lesson in why you should never, ever confuse kindness with weakness or privacy with lack of power. Victor thought he was the shark in the pond, but he was just a goldfish swimming in her ocean. She gave him the world, and he insulted her in it. So she did the only thing she could. She took it all back. Was Amelia's ultimate revenge too harsh, or did Victor get exactly what he deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you love stories of justice, dramatic twists, and powerful characters who get the last word, then you've come to the right place. Click the like button if you enjoyed this story, and share it with someone else who loves a good dose of drama. Most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We release new, gripping stories like this every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for listening.